1 in every 4 Liberal voters is saying, you're all trash. You are all trash.
I mean, 100% of conservatives are saying it. Ladies and gentlemen, the polls are in. No, not for the election. Today, we're talking about the polls measuring who Liberal voters hate the least in order to lead their party, and the results are laughable at best, so we decided to do a video about it.
Let's take a look.
Well, a new Nanos research survey done for CTV News shows Mark Carney is still the top pick to replace Justin Trudeau as Liberal leader, but more Canadians say they don't like any of the choices. Now, more than 1/4 of respondents said none of the candidates appeal to them. 18% chose Mark Carney. Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau tied at 11%. And to talk more about our country's political landscape, look who we have. Nick Nanos, the founder and chief data scientist at Nanos Research. Nick, how are you, sir?
Fine, thanks, Roger. How are you doing?
Not too bad, not too bad. Those interesting numbers. None of the above, eh? Always a favorite.
Well, welcome to Canadian politics. Not a good week for the Liberals, I guess. None of the above at 26, unsure at 14. That means 4 out of every 10 aren't enthusiastic about any of the choices, including the current leader of the Liberal Party.
What does the party even do with something like that? How do they even respond?
Well, parties, let's face it, they're trailing the Conservatives in the polls. They're probably looking for a savior. Roger, right now, no savior for the Liberal Party of Canada. Why don't we just say that? They've got to hope that somehow Pierre Poilievre makes a mistake, because right now, looking at who might be the leader, including Justin Trudeau, not really great numbers. Mark Carney does the best. Mm-hmm. So, that's positive. Maybe it's a Carney-Trudeau tag team. Not to sound like it's a wrestling match, but maybe something like that might help a little bit, but not a lot of enthusiasm right now.
No, I don't know what there is they can do about that. And the Conservatives, looking at the numbers, 40% support again?
Yeah, absolutely. The Conservatives are back at, 4 out of every 10 Canadians give them a tip of the hat. Liberals back 16 points at 24, NDP at 21. The reality is that, it's kind of like at 4 out of every 10. It's still a big win. Are we sounding like Bill Murray and Groundhog Day? Me and you kind of like, still a big win for the Conservatives.
Amazing.
Yeah, so it was interesting because I believe it was about a week ago, Nick Nanos started to sound excited because he had the Liberals up to like 26 and the Conservatives down to 38. And he was like, oh, the Conservatives, they're starting to slip and the Liberals are starting to make some gains. And
this came up on our live stream last night, didn't it? And we had advised that you don't want to look at just one data point. You want to look at the trend over a long period of time. And the trend has been that the Conservatives have been up by about 20 points for about a year now.
Yeah, so it's been pretty flat, and you are going to notice a lot of fluctuations. The Conservatives will be up to like maybe 41, 43. They will be down to maybe 37, 38. Yeah. And that'll go up and down and up and down.
And it's also important to remember that when Nanos does their surveys, they only survey around 1,000 people, which is kind of considered the minimum for a survey. It's acceptable as a survey, but it's not great. It's not like 3,500 that some of the other pollsters will do. So that's another thing that you want to keep in mind when you're looking at these numbers.
Well, and when I initially saw Nick Nanos' graph, I immediately thought back to our video that we did in December of 2023. You remember the one where Mercedes Stephenson essentially told Trudeau that everybody hates him.
Who could forget?
Who could forget that one? And one of our best shorts too. Anyhow, I found that very interesting. So I went hunting for it, and thankfully I was able to find it. So check this out. So this was a poll done by the man, Nick Nanos, back in 2023. And look at these numbers. So, in particular, Chrystia Freeland was at 18%. So she has fallen by
To
7%.
11, yeah.
Trudeau managed to pick up a whole 2 points. So at least he's back into double digits. He must be tickled about that one. And Sean Fraser managed to gain a whole percent if you then look at the updated poll. So he's increased by 3%. But the big winner here is Francois Philippe Champagne, the Chihuahua himself, has managed to double the amount of people that actually think he's a fit. So he's gone from 2 to 4% to everybody.
Ooh la la.
Give him a round of applause. Like, my goodness. And Mark Carney has gone up by 3% to a whole 18. But that's not the number I'm interested in talking about right now. Let's go back. The number I'm most interested in talking about is none of the above. So none of the above in 2023, Liberal voters were saying 24%. Only 24, or like upwards of 24% of Liberals were saying, I don't want any of these turkeys. So they've been working really, really hard. They've been delivering for Canadians. They released a whole new budget. Fairness for every generation. What did that result in? 2% more people are saying, yeah, no, we don't want any of you in here. 26% now. Over 1 in every 4 Canadians, or rather 1 in every 4 Liberal voters, is saying, you're all trash. You are all trash.
I mean, 100% of Conservatives are saying it.
Yeah, but then when you take that 26% plus the 13% of I don't know, that's 40%.
That's significant. The I don't know or unsure has gone down from December last year, but the fact that the none of the above has increased, and the guy who is not even in the party, he's not... he's not in cabinet. He's not a backbencher. I don't even know if he's a card-carrying Liberal. That's the guy that's got the most points.
Well, and here's the thing. Carney is supposed to be the savior, folks. He's supposed to be the one riding in on the white horse to save the Liberal Party from oblivion. And he's at 18%. Guys, you need a new savior here. Anyway, let's go back to Nick Nanos because he looks pretty depressed, and I can't say I blame him.
Right now, but a year is a lifetime in politics, and in theory, we're less than a year away from the election. So, but when it comes to leaders, though, Trudeau's made a little gain on Poilievre. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you're shaking your head.
Yeah, that's the statistical nod of the head or whatever, waving of the head or shaking of the head. Anyways, ask Canadians who they prefer as prime minister. Pierre Poilievre. 36% almost would prefer him as prime minister. Trudeau's 14 points back or thereabouts at around 21. The movement for Trudeau is within the margin of error. We'll have to see whether that is a new trend. But right now, he's still 14 points back. A little bit of negative pressure numerically on Singh at around 15 points. But, the ballot numbers are still good for the Conservatives. The PM numbers are still good for Pierre Poilievre. And this goes back to what we said at the beginning, Roger. Not a lot of enthusiasm for any of the possible choices, including the current choice of the leader of the Liberal Party, Justin Trudeau. And, Liberals kind of mired, trailing significantly the Conservatives.
Wow, did you see those numbers?
I also recall Jagmeet Singh bragging.
That he's going to be the next prime minister? I don't think Canadians want that.
Well, considering he's gone down 2.2 points, and 2.2 points when you were at 16, that's a lot. That's over 10%. That's a lot. And the funny thing is they're not talking about the fact that Pierre's popularity is slightly up. They're talking about the fact that Trudeau's popularity is slightly up to a whole 21%. Where's the golf clap when you need it?
I still can't get over Jagmeet Singh being that low. And I think he's got no one to blame but himself for the atrocious way he's handled himself. Well,
and his party.
Especially since 2022, but pretty much since he's been elected.
It's been a joke. Let's just be honest. Jagmeet Singh has been a joke. He may be a lawyer, but
There's no political strategy.
There's none.
Nothing. I mean, they signed this confidence and supply agreement with the Liberals in 2022 for what? It wasn't to get NDP members into cabinet.
Right? It was a terrible deal. So he's a terrible negotiator.
And then when the Liberals weren't holding up their end of the deal, the NDP said, "Okay, well, we'll extend that. We'll give you more time for pharmacare."
Yeah.
Like, what a joke!
If you don't do what's in that agreement, we'll keep voting with you.
And then at the end of the summer, Jagmeet ripped up the agreement, as he likes to remind us, but is still supporting the Liberals. Although we have seen some concurrence motions put forward by the NDP in an effort to slow the House down even more. So maybe they're coming around.
And the Bloc even let it slip that there's basically some background conversations and agreement between the NDP and the Bloc and the Conservatives to keep Parliament deadlocked going forward.
But still, it's way too late. Jagmeet Singh should have pounced back in March or April and called an election before the electoral riding boundary change.
Well, this is the thing. And Jagmeet obviously doesn't pay attention to Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau, and Tanya's brought this up many, many times, he sits on the fence and tries to pander to everybody all at once. And nobody likes that. Go figure. So then you have little brother Jagmeet Singh trying to do the exact same thing, but he's trying to pander to parties all at once and not voter bases, which makes even less sense than what Justin Trudeau was doing, because everyone can see it in plain sight. At least when Justin Trudeau is doing it, he goes off into this little room with one voter base and tells them one thing, and then sends a minister off into the other room and tells the other voter base something completely different.
Right.
So, at least there's this attempt to kind of placate them without public knowledge. But Jagmeet does it in front of the camera. So, yeah, what do you expect to happen here? So nobody believes you. And even if you stood up and said, "I'm taking down the Liberal government," everyone's going to be like, "Yeah, it's about time." No one's going to be celebrating you. They're going to be like, "What the hell took you so long?"
Well, the NDP has the chance to take down the federal government by putting forward a non-confidence motion during their next opposition day, their only opposition day this session. And guess what they've decided to talk about instead? Abortion. That thing that's not an issue in Canada right now.
All right, and let's talk about with the new president in the new old president in the U.S., Trump coming back in. Which of our leaders does Canada want to see deal with him?
Oh, was there another election this week, Roger?
No, I didn't notice.
No, you didn't notice?
No, very quiet.
Yeah, I know.
Very quiet.
Yeah, that's because that's why we're so Zen-like. Why don't we say that? I won't say happy or sad. Zen-like. Yeah. Well, we wanted to go back a survey that we did with CTV News ahead of the election, asking Canadians who they trusted most to deal with the outcome, whatever that might be. And what we saw, that Justin Trudeau actually nudged out ahead of Pierre Poilievre, 38-31. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that he has dealt with Donald Trump in the past, managed to conclude the USMCA agreement with the Trump administration. So a bit of an advantage, but still 20% or 1 out of every 5 say they don't trust either of them to kind of deal with the outcome of the election. Another 8% said that there's no difference. But yeah, so a little bit of an advantage for Justin Trudeau, probably because he has a track record and he managed to get Canada through the Trump administration.
All right, it's going to be interesting, no doubt about that. Nick, thank you as always, sir.
What kind of weird question is that?
Well, and you asked it before the election. Why wouldn't you wait until after the election? That's the question.
Because that's when we did the polling.
And I'm pretty sure a lot of people maybe actually, they may have believed the U.S. media when they were saying, "Oh yeah, Kamala's going to take it." And that might have actually contributed to Justin Trudeau's numbers, because I think if you ask most Canadians, the ones that are paying attention at least, they would say, no, I think Pierre is probably going to be the one best suited to deal with Donald Trump, because Pierre's going to be straight with them, and I think Donald Trump will respect that.
Yeah, I think Trump would respect Pierre way, way more than Justin Trudeau.
Well, I would say he would respect Pierre at all, because I don't think there is any respect for Justin Trudeau from Donald
Yeah,
Trump.
that's a fair point.
After
Or from anyone.
Well, and again, after Trudeau did this little high school thing where he was all nice to Trump's face and then went on the mic and been like, I'm Mr. Tough Guy and you won't push us around. And Trump's like, what? What are you talking about? So, and then, you know, that just, it completely undermined the relationship with Donald Trump. Just be straight. And whatever is said off camera, you keep off camera. That's the golden rule, by the way.
Yeah. What happens off camera stays off camera, unless you ask the individual, hey, is it okay if I
Quote you. Yeah.
quote you or say this to the audience or what have you?
Right. And we make sure we do that, you know, when we're dealing with emails with politicians. And sometimes they say, you know, please don't. And sometimes they say, sure, please go ahead. And we respect that. So,
And even with the audience, you know, we do get a lot of very intimate emails, and we don't go run into the camera with those because it's not appropriate. Those are private conversations.
yeah. And even when we, you know, reference people like Bob and Bob's thumb, we don't give Bob's last name because we don't want you to be able to put the last name to the first name
the
and then figure out who that thumb belongs to. So that thumb should stay private. Anyway, this is it, folks. This is the big revelation of the Liberal Party right now. So 1 out of 4 Canadian, almost 40% of their voters, just they don't care for anybody that is a hopeful in leading the party.
Well, again, Trudeau has created this weak cabinet. Again, the only guy who has the highest vote, even higher than Trudeau, is not a part of the cabinet. He's not even, like I said, I don't even know if he's a card-carrying Liberal or not. He's not an MP.
Right. And the savior that was initially shown as, you know, riding in a shining knight's armor, riding this white horse, charging in to save the day, seems like he's more like, you know, riding some rags, you know, on a donkey backwards coming in. Like, that's basically the polling numbers for him. So, you know, at this point, it may not even be a surprise that there's not going to be a Liberal leadership race, because no one even knows who they want to lead the party.